Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Amplified Wealth. My name is Austin Hagaman, and I'm here with Andrea Mondello. Hello, Andrea. So, Andrea leads Withum's data and AI service team. She has helped organizations around the globe implement, adopt, and derive value from Microsoft technologies. She has over 15 years of experience focused on SharePoint solutions with a knowledge management lens and 9 years of deep experience with Office 365. Her skill set includes project management, business analysis, change management, technology training, technology communications, and business process optimization. She's worked in multiple business verticals, including accounting, publishing, SEO, and digital and drug development, with a special focus on nonprofit and NGO organization programs and operations. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I just had a very interesting conversation with Tejas Desai, the director of research from GlobalX. He seems to believe that within the next 10 years, it's realistic to expect physical AI like humanoid robots in our day-to-day lives. What do you think about that?
I actually agree.
Really?
And the reason I agree with this is because it seems to be what people want. It seems to be, I think the market's going to drive what is being developed. And I think if you look at how people are using AI, so many people are using AI as a companion. And of course, there are whole business models being built around that. I think it's only natural that it is going to, we are going to see the, physical robots that have AI embedded.
Wow. Yeah, I think there was that a 60-minute show where they were talking about people going and having relationships with AI?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
No, it's a big thing. I mean, it's scary. I think it's scary, but for some people that works for them. And also, if you think about it, we're almost there now. You think about, have you ever seen these little robot dogs that they have? With little, very basic AI built in, or, a Roomba, right? So I think we've been working our way up to this. And I think people now have gotten a taste of what it's like to talk to someone who makes them feel good.
Right.
Which they may not have in their real lives. So.
Right. Wow. That's very, I personally can't wrap my head around it. My brain's a pretzel trying to imagine having, a humanoid AI in your space like that. But I guess if you told me in the late 90s that I'd have a personal computer in my pocket all the time, I wouldn't believe you either.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember I was working many, many, many years ago in accounting, and I'm old enough to remember our auditors coming and showing off their little computers that had Lotus 1-2-3 on it. You know what that is?
Yep, I do.
And this was like the biggest thing since sliced bread. And these little computers were about like this big, and now we just have, it's like you can do it on your iPad, right?
Right. Yeah. I remember there was I think it was an Excel commercial where the guy enters a elevator with his big laptop.
I've seen that old one, that old commercial.
And I'm sitting there saying, it's like the laptop's like this big.
And now we have Excel with AI in it, where you can ask a question or tell it to do something, or there's a brand new feature coming out for Excel that called the Copilot function, where you basically type at Copilot, and then it's like instead of a regular function, and then you tell it what you want it to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So
that would be great. I've never been able to wrap my head around macros. So
all right. Well, then
that could be useful. But that brings us to the meat and potatoes of this part of the episode. You help businesses figure out how to best use AI, whether it's solving problems or creating efficiencies, and then you guide them through the implementation. So I thought it would be interesting for our viewers if you could share a few case studies to help us better understand how AI is being applied in the business world.
Yeah, sure. So, this is interesting. I will tell you, we work with businesses of lots of different sizes. In some cases, the mid-market is actually ahead of the big organizations because they have less process and less hoops to go through and less scrutiny. So that's always interesting to see. So one of our clients you would consider them a communications agency. And so as an agency, they write communications for their clients to send out to their clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is they have all different clients. Each client wants their content written in a certain voice.
Okay.
So we've analyzed the voices of all the different clients. And we have created an application that takes that, and then they can say, okay, in this, voice, I want to write about this. Here are the facts that you need to include, et cetera, et cetera. And it produces newsletters. It produces, social media posts. So that's been a big boon to this organization. And I want to point out why this is so good, Austin. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about a couple more case studies in a minute, but I want to point out why this is so good. And this is actually at Withum, this is our focus. This is focused around what the organization does to make money. Right? So this is not, there's a lot of usage of, ChatGPT, and I use it to write my email. I use it to do this. I use it to do that. Those are personal productivity gains. What this organization did that we helped them do is focus on an organizational gain, something that's going to further their business strategy. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
Because there's a lot. I just heard the editor of The Atlantic, if any of your folks read that magazine, and he does a thing, the most important thing in technology today. And in the last couple of days, he did one that said he was at a conference with all CEOs of, the largest major orgs, and they all were saying AI was not making the money. They weren't seeing any effect to the bottom line. And this is why. They're not putting it in the right place.
Okay.
So anyway, so that was one.
So you're saying that larger businesses, even smaller businesses, you think that there's a period where the company really needs to figure out how to make best use of it before they can turn it to profitability.
It is. That is the deal. Companies think they want to start with an AI strategy. What we're hearing is a CIO coming to us saying, our board says we need an AI strategy. Mm-hmm. But our question back is, well, what's the business strategy? And so a lot of decisions here are being driven by FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Right.
And this is where you hear about these AI, proof of concept that go nowhere because it's driven by FOMO. It's not driven by business thinking. Mm-hmm. It's like there are certain principles that don't go away no matter how the technology changes. Right. And here you need to focus on what does the business do? How does the business make money? And then enable that. What's your differentiator in the marketplace? And that's what we're very focused on when we work with clients, is looking at that first, starting with a business lens first, and then introducing the technology.
Right. And this period of figuring it out, and maybe spending money to figure it out, right? Because you have to make mistakes. You have to. You do. You have to move. It's move fast and break things, right?
A little bit, right?
This isn't unfamiliar. I remember when Facebook first went public, they basically went out to market and they said, "Listen, we have more information on your users, your end clientele than you could ever imagine. Let's use that for you to then push your marketing to people." And companies were like, that's great, but they didn't know how to do it because they were used to doing commercials on TV and newspapers and magazines and stuff like that. And there was this period of companies either not doing anything, freezing, or putting money in the wrong direction until they figured it out. And now we all know Facebook to be Facebook and this great source for companies to then advertise on, right?
Yeah. So, you may not get it right the first time, but our goal is to help you get as close to right as possible the first time. The good news is usually we're coming in after the first time because folks will try to do it, company will try to do it on their own. And, the other concern, of course, is governance. And how do we govern this within the organization? And here is where the small orgs normally get ahead of the big ones because they usually don't have as much governance. And how do we fit it into our process? Well, we don't really have a process, so it doesn't matter. Let AI be our process, It's and they can kind of leapfrog. But eventually, I think that'll, You need process eventually to have a growing concern. So
right, and I bet it helps to work with somebody who has made the mistakes before, right? Who has spent the time playing around with it, right? To help kind of push that company forward in a direction.
What we see is, and I'm sure you see it in other areas, like of what you do. What we see is a lot of people going for a home run instead of trying to just get to first base, get to second base, right? Get the base hits, do the basics.
Right.
They want to just do the moonshot right out of the gate, and they're not ready.
Right. What's the next get rich quick scheme?
Yeah, right. They need to, there's a certain level of technology, a certain level of training and comfort the folks in the organization have to have, that the executives have to have. So, you need to have that baseline first.
Right. So before we hop into another case study, you mentioned analyzing the voice. What does that mean? How are they doing that? Are they reading emails or content, other types of content?
No, we have given the client a way to feed in various already produced pieces, meaning they have, things that have already been vetted and created that the client is happy with. This is our voice. Then we feed that into this application, and the application analyzes it. And, if you just got ChatGPT, you could do some of this out of the box. But what we've done is add a lot of structure to this. So I'm not going to go into it because it's proprietary, but there are a lot of different ways to analyze voice and analyze writing. And, we're very specific. We very specifically go into all that. So.
Okay. So you feed it.
Makes a difference in the quality of the output.
Right. You feed the AI data, other articles, other items for it to read through, and that becomes the voice. And then you have a structure that also helps feed that.
That's right.
Very interesting. All right. Let's jump to a different company.
So we have created a WhatsApp app.
Okay.
So if you think about construction firms that have folks out in the field, and, people speak all different languages. So some of these folks may or may not speak English. So an industry like that, or, some other industry where you have field workers. And it's important to get information back to the home office quickly. So we've created an AI app that, and it sits on top of WhatsApp, which a lot of these folks will already have on their phone. And they can actually speak into WhatsApp and say, for instance, John has fallen and we have a safety incident on the job, and here's when it happened, and here's what happened, here's what I'm doing about it. Or this wall is not straight, and now the other wall, and, whatever. I'm not a construction person. So, things like that. And it translates that, it transcribes that, and it sends it, it figures out what this application uses AI to figure out what to do with it. So does it need to go to the safety officer? Does it need to be recorded in you can do your timesheet that way. You could say, I worked 5 hours on this site, and then I went to this other site and worked 3 hours, right? And just by saying that, it knows where to put that on your timesheet. So, it's being orchestrated in the background, and it's sending the information, to different databases, different applications, whatever your back-end applications are, HR, accounting, whatever happens to be.
Interesting.
Pretty cool.
That is very cool. So where the company may have needed multiple people who speak different languages, or one person that knows several different languages to receive these calls and to be on duty when the calls come in, you've figured out how to use AI to then receive it, replace that individual or individuals, and then also be able to know what to do with that information once they get it.
And that's the key, right? That routing that's happening.
Right.
And it knows when to escalate to a human. Right. So for instance, in the circumstance of an emergency on the job site, it knows what that means, and it escalates to a human. So it's very exciting. And it's not just, I would just say, this is not just about translation. Anybody who's worked with folks who have to go out in the field and do something and report on it knows that very often that reporting doesn't happen timely.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen timely, you miss stuff. Right. And the folks who go out in the field, and maybe you're a repair person, think of a repair person who goes out in the field to do a job. they don't like filling out a lot of paperwork.
Right.
But they love doing this because all they have to do is talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could see that being very convenient. I know myself when I have, a strand of 3 meetings in a row, right? I write notes down during the meetings and then I have to upload it to our CRM. But then at the end of the 3rd meeting, I'm going back thinking about the first one. I write something down. I'm not sure if I meant the right thing when I wrote it down. Everything was moving quickly. So I could totally understand how that could be super useful.
Austin, you could be using AI to do that.
I could be using AI to do that.
I use it for every single, where the client allows it. Some clients don't allow it. But if the client allows it, we use it for every single meeting. And it's fantastic for folks in professional services because sometimes the devil's in the details. And if you miss the detail, you get it wrong for the client. So we love using AI to record and transcribe our meetings, summarize, and then give us our action items.
Well, so it's not just a transcription, right? If so-and-so said this, so-and-so, it actually it briefs you and then gives you action items?
For a long time.
Wow.
This is now summarizing and giving you your action items. And then 3 days later or 30 days later, I can say to this application that, the one we use, hey, I don't remember. I know I had a meeting with Austin a month ago. I don't remember whether I finished all my action items. Can you refresh my mind? What were my action items from that meeting?
Wow.
It's fantastic.
So it's just like having a personal assistant sitting outside your office.
It's like having a personal assistant. We say, and that's the challenge, right? Is if you're not somebody who has been supervising other people, then this may be a little bit of a challenge for you because basically this is like having a personal assistant or an intern or what, you just have to remember that like an intern, you have to give them the context. You always have to give whatever these tools are. You always have to give it the context because they don't know the context.
Right. Yeah. I find that when I use ChatGPT or other AIs and when I'm communicating with having it help me, I need to correct it sometimes. I need to say, just so you know, we need to look at it from this aspect whenever we talk about this or something like that. So you have to treat it like a human.
Yeah, you do. You have to treat it like this person was just hired. They know nothing about what you do and they're good. They can do stuff for you, but they need that context and they need very specific instruction.
Right. They're a first-year worker at the firm type of thing.
Exactly.
I like the case study on this construction company, mostly because it's a construction company. When you say construction company using AI, my brain first is like, well, that's impossible. They work with their hands, machinery, and then it's like, all right, well, maybe the AI is in the digging machinery, but no, what you're doing is you're letting the construction company do what it's good at. And that stuff on top, that layer on top that is more mundane and maybe not as fun or interesting for the individuals working at the construction company, AI has come in and been able to find a way to optimize it.
And I want to keep in mind for your listeners that there are 2 kinds of AI, really. There's the boring kind that we've had for many years, machine learning. And if you think about the simplest example of a business card reader, right? Everyone knows, you get these little business card reader and it scans your business and it pulls out the information and puts it in the CRM or whatever it happens to be. Like we've had that kind of thing forever, or read an invoice and pull out the information from the invoice. This new piece, the kind of sexy piece, is Gen AI, right? And that's the ChatGPT and the Copilot and the Claude and the Llama and all those, all that kind of stuff. And the machine learning stuff that's always been there is actually more reliable. AI is never 100%, but it's more reliable. And then you have the Gen AI, which is a lot cooler, but it's not as reliable, right? We've all heard about these hallucinations and these things and, and the issue is it's very convincing when it's wrong, right? So, but when businesses are thinking about AI, very often they're talking about Gen AI, but that's not what they need. Right. Very often what they need is more, traditional machine kind of learning. So again, let's not go for the moonshot. Let's think what's going to make you money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Awesome. So how many case studies do you have?
I've got another case study, for you, Austin. So we had an organization that wanted to kind of run AI over their documents and be able to ask questions, about their documents in their document management, storage. And that's a pretty common request. We get that a lot. The problem that they were having is they had tons of technical diagrams in these documents, and the AI on its own was not doing a good job of answering questions about the technical documents. It really wasn't understanding what the image was showing and what the whole point of the image was, and what the pieces were, and it just wasn't doing a good job. So we wrote, and I guess you would call it an accelerator. We built an accelerator that added on to the AI that the client was using that analyzed those documents in detail, so that you could ask a question about a document and say, where does that screw go? Okay. Or what is the, I don't know, the flange. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What is that thing? And, what do you have to do with it? Or what is its purpose in the technology? Or it was just really, honestly, really amazing. It really understands at that point. It looks at the image and really understands not just piece by piece, but puts it together and understands what it's about, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
That was I know that's very technical.
That's interesting.
But it's really interesting.
What is an accelerator? Is that a computer? Is that a program that you insert into the AI?
I'm using that term broadly. I'm glad you asked me that, Austin. We call anything an accelerator that we're enhancing something that already exists.
Okay.
To kind of make it better.
Okay.
So in this case, it was code that was making this better.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm not the person that writes the code, so I'm not going to go into it.
Very, very interesting.
I'm the person who understands the business problem.
So
right?
if you're trying to use AI, what my takeaway here is as a non-AI person, although I guess we live in a world where we're all going to be AI people one day, is that if I'm using ChatGPT or one of these other, AI platforms, and I'm noticing that it is not comprehending what I think it should be comprehending, there is likely a way or a possibility that there's a way to, have a team like yours come in, insert code or something like that, and it would actually be able to. So it's not like something didn't work, so it doesn't work. It's just it hasn't been trained in the way that I need it to work. Yeah.
Okay. And when we talk about ChatGPT or Claude or any of these are kind of general purpose models. Mm-hmm. There are models that are specific to specific domains. Okay. So there are ones that are better for finance, for instance, and understand finance better. So I don't want to say you always need to jump to code, to extra code. Sometimes it's just switching the model, and find the model that's right for what you need. And this is where we talk about, I will say your listeners have probably heard about agents. There's a lot of, AI agent and agentic AI. And what does this all mean? All it means is it's kind of like what I was talking about before with the construction example, where AI can figure out, it doesn't just give you the answer, but it'll figure out what to do next. Oh, you're calling about and I'll talk about this use case in a minute, but you're calling about your insurance plan, your pension plan. Let's say your pension plan. You're calling about your pension plan. You want to know XYZ. Do you want me to send you a brochure? Or do you need me to update your date of birth or whatever it happens to be? And then if the person says yes, it goes off and talks to another agent that then talks to the database that can actually do that work. So you've got this whole orchestration of one agent that kind of orchestrates things, and then all these other agents that go out and do the work.
So it's a series of almost AI employees working together.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's almost like that. And I want to go back to your point about it doesn't do what I want it to do, right? Like, is it broken? Is it just not? I would say there were some use cases where, we still find it's a slow slog. There are just some things that Gen AI is not great at. Some of these models are not great at, but very often it has to do with the data you're sending it to. So, for instance, we have worked with, a pension plan administrator. And the key there was, at first they had all these documents and they said, okay, AI, we're going to ask you a question about all these documents. Now, some models are really good at that. Mm-hmm. Other models would rather look at just one document and do a really good job about the one document. Mm-hmm. So what the technology they were using, we said to them, no, let's just look at your, the plan document and this other, there were 2 or 3 documents we were going to look at, and we got great results. So again, you have to ask, what am I trying to do? And is the model I'm using the best model to do that thing?
Interesting. Now, I was at a conference where the person presenting was asking AI, I forget, I'm going to call it ChatGPT because that's just what's top of my head right now.
Some model,
where ChatGPT couldn't do something and said, well, what AI program I could use? And ChatGPT actually suggested different AI programs it could use. That's basically how it works, right? That's
nothing wrong with that.
If your platform you're using isn't doing what you want it to do, you can ask it, hey, is there a better program for this? And it'll be, it's not going to be an employee and lie to you and say, oh no, I'm the best at it. It's going to say, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would, but
okay.
Maybe it would. But you see, if I got that answer from an AI, I would then not believe it. Do you know what I mean? You have to have a healthy skepticism about some of these things.
Right.
But in general, it will give you a good answer. It will give you a real answer. The other thing I would say, Austin, in this arena is each model has its own way it likes to be talked to.
Okay.
Think of it like a human. Here's my love language, that whole love language. So what I always do is when I'm trying to write a prompt, especially if it's, going to be a complicated request, I actually ask that model, that AI, to write the prompt for me. So I say, you, and I'll just use myself, you are a consultant, and this is what you do. And a client has this problem and you are trying to solve this problem, trying to whatever, and write the prompt that I should use to get a good response, a detailed response. And then it writes the prompt, and I always tell it, and tell me why it's a good prompt, because that helps me learn what that model wants me to do. So
instead of just prompting the model, you're asking the model, how should I prompt you to get the best results? And that's interesting. That's
very interesting.
That's some real outside of the box thinking. I like that.
Yeah. And it works really well. I don't do it all the time, but for very complicated things, or when I'm not really sure what the best prompt will be, then I will do that. And I've gotten very good results.
Interesting. I've never done that. I have said, this is what I'm trying to do. Is there any more detail or any questions you want to ask me before answering? I found is a great tool.
Good for you.
This prompting strategy though, that's very interesting. That could probably save me some time and make me more effective at this. Okay.
Good. You can, my bill will be in the mail.
So, how does this all work? Do companies just come to you and your team and say, Andrea, I want to use AI better. How do I do it? And then you review how the business works, or are they coming to you with more pinpointed problems?
Both. It just depends on, it is a journey, right? So different companies are at different stages in their AI journey. So when we, our first intro combos that we'll have with organizations are really about us understanding where they are in their journey and what their understanding is, to try to understand what they're trying to do. So if they come to us and it's mostly FOMO driven and it's, the board says we need an AI strategy, then we help with that. What we don't want to do is just leave them with just the strategy. So normally we try to suss out 2 or 3 or 4 really good use cases for them that have a good chance of, making a return on investment for them, not just, and we try to prioritize and pick the best one and say, okay, now if you were to implement this, here are the steps that we would do. So we'll do a roadmap as well.
Okay.
And we also will talk about adoption and training and, and governance, because everybody's using AI.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are not using it within the corporate walls.
Okay.
So they're using free chat GPT and putting company information in free chat GPT or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like they're doing it. So we have shadow AI going on. And so most organizations will kind of want to govern that, put some policies in place, make sure that people, if you say no, you need to give them what is yes. So they have to have something approved. So we also help decide which is the best tool for you, for your organization. And it's often a combination of tools. And sometimes it's an application that's already built. So I want to give you one more case study.
Okay.
So we're not all about building if we don't need to build. There are already great, very niche AI applications out there on the market. One of the areas where this is really growing fast is in the legal area.
Okay.
So there are contract review, clause review, obviously research, very specific to the legal world. There are great third-party things out there already for that. So we're not going to, we wouldn't build that. We would say, let's help you evaluate which of these is best for you, right? It's always a make or buy decision. And another organization just came to us, a construction materials company, a building materials company. And it turned out that they had found an application to help them do predictive inventory. Like, in other words, to understand how much to order.
Okay.
And when to order to help them with their cash flow. So this was already out there. So there's no need for us to go ahead and build it. So there's so much exciting movement in this area. And there are a lot of players, and a lot of the players are startups. So, you do have to be careful. But I think there's a lot out there already, Austin. It's very exciting.
Very exciting. I think it's interesting we get the financial aspect of it. We hear the news headlines. We see the dollars and cents of the semiconductors making all this money right now and the projection that it's probably going to shift to software, et cetera. But it's good to actually hear about how certain companies are using it, right? The story that is actually leading to those dollars and cents. So I appreciate you sharing that. So as it pertains to AI, what are you most excited for that's not available to us yet?
Right now, AI is kind of the Wild West.
Okay.
And I do think we need to have and I don't mean to stifle growth, and I don't, I get it, but I do think we need a little more regulation.
Okay.
Around how models are trained and, kind of what's behind the scenes, whether they have any biases or not. I think that that's important to pull back the covers a little more and have more transparency.
Sure.
And some of these organizations are better at it than others. But for me, that is what I would like to see.
Sure. Yeah. And I bet I know it takes our politicians some time to wrap their head around new technology. I don't think I think it was maybe five-ish years ago where Mark Zuckerberg went, I'm going to say this wrong, but in front of a bunch of politicians, and one of them was asking him, questions about social media that I think a 5-year-old could answer. Yeah, right. So, and it's not, they're focused on different things, right? And some of them are older. They
need to focus on this. The whole world, right now is trying to grapple with this question about some of the ethics here. And to circle back to the beginning of our conversation about the AI being a relationship, and I think this is partly why. Mm-hmm. We have to be very careful about how these tools are being used, what's behind the scenes, how the tools can prevent harm.
Right.
I think that that's really important. I think all the great things that are going to help businesses are going to happen. Mm-hmm. Because that's how our system works, right? The dollars are going to flow to the things that are going to be, help businesses. That's why I'm concerned that we need to make a conscious effort to think about these other issues.
Right. Right. Okay. So, one last question.
All right.
How do you use AI in your personal life? You mentioned your prompting secret, which I'm definitely going to leverage. How are you using AI in your personal life?
Yeah. So I have found, as a consultant, as a, basically a knowledge worker, right? I have found that AI is super helpful in doing research. So to be frank with you, this is efficiency for my clients. So what used to take me 2 or 3 hours if I had to do research for a client, now takes, 10 minutes of prompting plus maybe 20 minutes of checking, right?
Okay.
So I always check, but these are huge benefits for my clients. So that I do all the time. I mentioned the meetings. I can't live without my meeting transcription and, my AI telling me what my next step is. Now I've come to depend on that. We have certainly used AI to, write code and to create applications.
Okay.
This whole vibe coding thing. To build a user interface I have used AI to create flowcharts based on, because we often have to map out business processes. So the AI can create those flowcharts. Oh my gosh. So many, I use AI in my daily life now. So many different ways. Don't take it away.
Right. It's like a personal assistant. It sounds like.
Yes. Don't take it away because I really need it.
Right. And I like how you said 10 minutes of prompting and then 20 minutes of checking. So you're spending twice as much time checking it as you are prompting it. And that's 30 minutes, but it's also saving you 3 hours.
Saving hours. But it's saving my client money. Do you understand? Like that's the promise here. That's the promise here. So it's exciting.
Right. That is exciting. So how do people find your group? Where do they go? Is there a website they can go to?
Withum.ai, actually.
So Withum.ai.
Yeah.
They can go there if they're interested in having a meeting with someone from your team, just exploring the concept more, or if they have a problem or if they want to read more. Okay, perfect. Well, Andrea, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you on again as AI keeps developing. It seems like we go leaps and bounds every couple months.
There'll be something new every week.
Yeah. Well, thank you
so much, Austin, for the opportunity.
Thank you.